So if everyone can see my slides, I'll just present this and just kind of highlight the overview of the NSUF and the specific topic areas here. So, all right, so the NSUF program is DOE-NE's only user facility. The focus is on radiation effects of nuclear fuel materials and sensors. Awards provide access to capabilities and expertise at no cost to the end user. Access awards support experimental design, fabrication, transport, radiation, PIE, and disposition of the materials. We have two primary open and competitive access mechanisms. First is the CINR, which we're talking about here today, as well as the rapid turnaround experiment. So just for full clarity, the rapid turnaround experiments are not part of this Q&A session, nor are part of the CINR FOA. So this slide, I'm not going to go into great detail, and as I previously mentioned, the slides are available online, but this highlights some of the key capabilities provided by the program. So these include neutron reactors, so a number of reactor facilities such as the Advanced Test Reactor at Idaho National Laboratory, as well as a number of others at other national laboratories and universities, a suite of different gamma and ion radiation capabilities, as well as the full spectrum of post-irradiation examination from hot cells, low length scale characterization, and a number of other capabilities. That includes beamlines such as synchrotron beamlines, as well as pulsed neutron beamlines for nuclear fuel and material studies, as well as provides computational resources. This includes the high performance computing capabilities at the Idaho National Laboratory. So altogether, we have 21 partner sites. The NSUF user access mechanisms are open to industry, academia, and national labs, and we'll talk about that specifically today, about the NSUF 1 and NSUF 2 topic areas. And overall, the impact is to drive innovation across a number of nuclear energy technologies. All right, so I wanted to briefly highlight our website for user resources. So if you look at the homepage for the NSUF website, nsuf.inl.gov, under the resource tab on the left-hand side, you will find a link to a number of different capabilities that are described as part of the NSUF program. So you can click on beamlines or post-radiation examination to learn more. And then we also have a link for each of our partner institutions and partner contacts. So what I'll mention here is the opportunity for applicants to reach out to both the program office and technical leads. I think Brendan says it, but we want to hear that, have an engagement early on in the process for the CINR of the applicant reaching out to the program office and or technical leads. In terms of the technical areas, the slide is quite busy, but shows the full kind of capabilities or different types of projects that have been done in the past under the NSUF. And in the center, as I mentioned previously, is radiation effects of nuclear fuel materials, and kind of gets into a long number of different areas here, things like advanced manufacturing, fundamental understanding of materials, as well as things like advanced materials such as radiation resistant materials as well. I'd also encourage folks to look at our nuclear fuel and materials library. This is over 9,000 specimens, and this stems from a number of different sources, from completed NSUF projects, commercial reactors, as well as a number of other areas, things like specimens from research reactors. The database is searchable. You can find it at the NSUF website. It's searchable by composition, by specimen, and also has some supporting information such as previous publications. So here, some recent additions include some stainless steel from a commercial reactor, as well as some ATR radiated fuel plates. Again, at the end of the slide deck will be some point of context, but you can certainly reach out to the program office at INL to learn more about the nuclear fuel and materials library. All right, so NSUF topic areas, there are two. So this is NSUF 1. So some key aspects here is it's eligible to lead as universities only. The NSUF access support is up to 4 million, R&D support up to 1 million. And so the R&D support, to couple with the NSUF access, is permitted for tasks associated with the execution of the requested NSUF capabilities. So this include a compilation and interpretation of the radiation and post-radiation examination, complementary modeling and simulation, and related activities. It's important to note the R&D is not for the development of new materials, fuels, and sensors that is covered under other topic areas. NSUF readiness is an important consideration, and I would encourage folks to check out the appendix noted on the slide here. So what can you do under NSUF 1? So again, it's consistent with the NSUF mission, and to provide access to highly specialized research capabilities. You can access neutron irradiations, post-radiation examinations, synchrotron neutron beamlines, ion irradiations, the full spectrum of capabilities that I already talked to previously. And some key restrictions to consider are access, the requirement to sign a user agreement, and that the projects are non-proprietary in nature. All right, so in terms of the actual topic area, there's one topic area here, NSUF 1 for joint NSUF access and R&D. Areas of interest may include, but are not limited to, fuel and core materials, advanced materials and manufacturing methods, and sensor materials, instrumentation, and active component systems. So in the funding opportunity, this goes into more detail than what's provided here on the slide, and happy to take any questions on this specific description. The second NSUF topic is NSUF 2. So this is specifically universities, national labs, and industry. This is access only, so no R&D support. And this is up to $4 million, and would encourage folks to, again, review the NSUF readiness requirements. And this is just a repeat from the previous slide, so I'm going to skip over this. But again, you can access the full suite of neutron radiation capabilities, post-radiation examination, as well as all the different PIE capabilities. So again, the NSUF topic area 2 is fuel and core materials, advanced materials and manufacturing methods, and sensor materials, instrumentation, and active components. And again, I'll mention it is areas of interest may include these, but are not limited to that. Essentially, anything that's relevant to the NE mission could be, that leverages the NSUF capabilities could be proposed in this topic area. Some cautions and requirements, as I mentioned previously, it does require a user agreement, and that will be required to be signed 30 days after the awarded project. NSUF readiness, projects in addition go under a readiness review to make sure that projects are actually ready for access to the capabilities. And so this is also described in the FOA. And again, would encourage folks to read that specific part of the FOA in great detail. NSUF feasibility, again, also an additional requirement, and proposals will go under a feasibility review, which evaluate the experimental complexity, facility schedule, project schedule, cost, and things like shipping radiological materials. And of course, duplication of prior projects is will not be considered. So with that, I'll stop the presentation here with the slide of the key point of context for the program. And open it up for any questions for myself and Brendan.
I see one hand raised. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
I see. I'm going to have to be the first one. Chris, Brendan, how much detail do you want in the letter of intent? I know it said 3 pages, but what's the amount of detail that we want to go into?
So there is a template that'll be attached, but the letter of intent is really the introduction. So who you are, who your collaborators are, which can change at that point, what you're seeking to do and where you're seeking to do it. It's really so we can put our technical leads in touch with the PI and their team. So yeah, that's the real challenge is that the pre-application is due 3 weeks later. So that's not a lot of time to get that set, and that of course is the document that's reviewed by the for relevancy and for the technical merits. So we want to make sure that we're providing as much support as possible. So you certainly won't get dinged for having too much detail, but there's no reason to put any in if you're still think that the project might change a bit.
Thanks. Did you say it will be available on CINR website or is it somewhere else? And if it's
I
an
believe there's a
FOA,
link
I
in the
might have just been
FOA.
missing. Okay, cool. Thanks.
That link is also on the NUP.gov website. Looks like we have one more. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hey, just question. I know developing new material are not part of the scope, R&D scope, but I'm just curious if we have to integrate our testing methods in the NSUF facilities. We have to do some validation development at the facility. Would that be part of R&D efforts for the NSUF 1?
So I think certainly you should provide that the detail of what you're going to be doing in the application, not necessarily in the LOI, but
so for example, if we want to do some high temperature material testing in certain ways in a beam line, but there is no such methods there, but the infrastructure is there. We can develop the just set up that over there before we're actually running the release samples. And we can do evaluation at the same time while we're developing the methods with R&D. And once it's ready, so the material will go into the facility and run the test. I was just curious if this is considered reasonable R&D for that particular core, or it's considered not feasible for this particular NSUF 1.
Well, I really don't want to judge your proposal at this point. I would say, please reference the readiness criteria in particular. At a very high level, we would prefer to see that you can make the material and that you've done the non-irradiation testing. But like I said, please look at those readiness criteria and
okay.
From an even higher level, what has happened in some instances, or things that at least we're worried about, is because we need to schedule and arrange to do all this work through our partner facilities. If the material isn't ready for radiation testing, help. There are cases where we were worried that they had never even made the material that they were proposing, that could just basically throw the whole project into a tailspin. So that's why we put those detailed readiness criteria in there. Please take a look at them, and you can, like I said, you put in your letter of intent. We'll get you with a technical lead, and the technical lead will not participate in the review process. They'll be working essentially for you to support your NSUF project, so they can probably give you better. They can look at your particular work and give you better advice on that than we can, that have to stay away.
Yeah, I guess the material is ready for radiation. That's no problem. I can put it a different way. So I guess can NSUF facility, if there's no such capabilities, they can assess it. They may be able to develop the capabilities in their facility, and that's part of R&D. I don't know if it's R&D for us or it's R&D for the NSUF. If we want to test material in a certain way that they never did it before, but they think they can do it.
That's a great question. And you were right to bring up feasibility. That's kind of where that would fall in. If this were, obviously everything still has to fall into the scope of a project. It has to be the right length, the right cost, and the partner would have to want to do it. So if it's just a matter of, there's some new technique they have to develop that is reasonable for them to do, that I think is at least likely to be okay. Like I said, there's a whole lot of vagueness there that we have to talk about. If it were a matter of they've got to buy a new microscope, then that probably isn't, it just isn't feasible.
Right.
But like I said, that's really high level. But that's also why we'll get you in touch with the tech leads for every partner you want to use. And you can talk to them before you put anything in, because our contact information's up on the website. In fact, that's a very good idea.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
We know we'll have to, if we were going to do an irradiation at one of our reactors, we would have to build a vehicle for that. So that's the kind of thing that would be involved in a typical project. What we don't want to do is, if they've got to basically invent a new technique to make the measurement, that throws a lot of uncertainty or potential uncertainty into it.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much.
But they're the ones that give us the feasibility review. We'll certainly do a higher level one, but if a partner comes back to us and says we can't do that, then we generally accept that.
Sure.
I'll just add one additional comment here, and I agree with everything Brendan's mentioning, is what he already kind of mentioned, is to reach out early in the process to both the program office and or the technical leads. They're there to help support these projects. And so, reach out to kind of work through what you're describing here to kind of understand where that line might be.
Yeah, and obviously this is just one opportunity for discussion. Please feel free to reach out to us, and ideally through your technical leads eventually with other questions that come up.
Okay, great. Thank you guys so much. And I'm going to hand it over to Drew to close us out.
All right. Yeah, I just want to thank Chris and Brendan for being available for this session. The idea here is just to increase engagement. So this will be going up on the website along with slides and other information that's been available through these webinar series. Just want to remind everybody about the upcoming due dates and how to contact Brendan, Chris, myself, others as you prepare your applications. Just in about a week or so, we've got our NSUF LOI due date. June 26th is our pre-application due date. And so just be aware of those two deadlines. I will mention that if you're thinking about applying to this scope area, either NSUF 1 or NSUF 2, there are some additional deadlines you need to hit over the course of those spaces, pre-application statement of work, those types of things. So please, if you're applying to this area, pay special attention in the funding opportunity about that special documentation that this area needs. And finally, from a contact standpoint, of course, reach out to the NSUF office for NSUF related questions. For general questions about this scope or others, please direct those to nup@inl.gov. That will allow us to direct your question to the appropriate program manager or national technical director to be able to answer your question. We check that email often, and we'll get you a response typically within 24 hours if you email there. So with that, that would be our preference on contact. And if you have any further questions, please reach out to myself or on nup@inl.gov for additional clarifications.